Hi, boys and girls. Today we are going to read a nonfiction feature called Black Sunday. This is about a dust storm that happened in American history, and I thought since there was some unprecedented things happening right now in our lives, this would be a good correlation that we can make a connection to, and that we can kind of maybe we will be able to relate. Before we get started, there's a few things that I'd like to do. The first thing I'd like to do is take a look at the picture in the background of the story. So you see these very old cars. You can see that there is like a farm, and then just all this smoke. Looks like smoke, but it's actually dust. Okay, I take a look at this picture. This is Catherine at age 5, and then I want to go through. I kind of want to go through some of the text features so that we can kind of familiarize ourselves a little bit with the text features. So we have our heading up here, so Black Sunday, and then our little tagline, the shocking story, the biggest dust storm in American history by Lauren Tarshis. And then we have here, it says change to the land. So we have some subheadings as we go. We're going to turn the page. We have a lot more subheadings, so a hopeful time, the Great Depression, piles of dust, humans must fix it. Oh, and the black cloud up there, almost missed it. Okay, we also have these pictures. So let's take a look at the pictures before we read the story, and we hopefully can kind of imagine what was happening and really visualize it as you're listening. So this first one here says brand new towns. Catherine grew up near Kinsley, Kansas. Kinsley was just one of many towns that settlers built on the southern plains. So if you can see here, we have in this map, the Dust Bowls lasted from 1931 to 1940, so that's how long the storms lasted, 9 years. And here we have the Southern Plains, which is where Catherine, grew up. So we have Kansas, Nebraska, Colorado, New Mexico, part of Texas, and part of Oklahoma were all involved. Okay? There were many dangerous dust storms in the area in the 1930s, and people called that the Dust Bowl. All right, and let's look at this middle picture right here. It says, torn from the earth. When settlers arrived in the southern plains, they changed the land. Farmers ripped out about 5.2 million acres of prairie grass to plant wheat. Soon there was almost no prairie grass left. So that can explain where all the dust came from, huh? No grass to keep it down. All right, one more thing we're going to do before we start to read is we are going to take a look at this vocabulary. So the first word, and we're down here in the box down here, is prairie. So prairie is a large, flat area with very few trees. The next word is drought. A drought is a long period of very dry weather. So sometimes we have a drought here in the Benton Salem area. Oftentimes in summer, we can go weeks without rain. The next word is settlers. And those are people who make a home in a new place. So anyone who settles in a new place. The Great Depression is a time period between 1929 to 1939 where many people lost their jobs and their money, which we can relate to that now, right? And then our last vocabulary word for today is gritty, which is full of tiny pieces of sand and dirt. So oftentimes if you maybe you're at the beach and you have sand everywhere, then it might feel gritty. All right, boys and girls, follow along with me as I read along. Catherine Hatrup was 9. It was Sunday, April 14th, 1935. It was a quiet afternoon. Catherine was at her grandmother's house. They lived near Kinsley, Kansas. Suddenly, Catherine's grandmother rushed inside. "Oh no!" her grandmother cried. "There's a terrible black cloud, and I have no idea what it is." People saw it for hundreds of miles around. The sky was black. Was it a thunderstorm? Was it a tornado? No, it was a dust storm, the biggest in U.S. history. It was a cloud of dust 200 miles wide. It spread across the land at 65 miles per hour. What would happen when it hit? Okay, so it's asking us to pause and think. So why did her grandmother come running inside? Right, she rushed inside because she saw a huge black cloud coming towards them. Changes to the land. Parts of Kansas are in the area called the Southern Plains. This area is flat. For thousands of years, the land was covered by prairie grass. The grass was strong, it was sturdy. It could survive the area's harsh weather. It lived through winters, it lived through summers, it even survived drought. But in the late 1800s, the Southern Plains was different. The U.S. government was changing the American wilderness. They wanted more towns, cities, and farms. The government took land from Native Americans and gave the land to white settlers. The settlers paid little or no money for the land. The settlers ripped up the prairie grass. They planted crops. They turned the land into wheat farms. Pause and think. What did the U.S. government do and why? So they bought land from the Native Americans and gave it to people to settle because they wanted more towns, cities, and farms. A hopeful time. Initially, the farms prospered. Prospered means to do really well. There were plenty of rain and crops grew quickly. Towns, stores, and churches popped up everywhere. Catherine was born during this hopeful time. In 1925, she was one of 7 children, and she and her siblings went to a one-room schoolhouse. She rode horses and went with her father into the fields where he grew wheat and raised cattle. Catherine's life was happy, but hard times were just ahead. Okay, what made the crops grow quickly at first? Good. So there's plenty of rain. Let's go back into the text. If we go back into the text, we can see right here there was plenty of rain and crops grew quickly. The Great Depression. In 1929, the Great Depression began. Millions of people lost their jobs. They lost their life savings. The price of wheat fell. Many families struggled. They couldn't pay their bills. Then, in 1932, a drought hit the Southern Plains. The rain just stopped. With no prairie grass to protect the soil, it dried up and blew away. On windy days, the air was gritty. The sky was brown with dust. The dust went everywhere. Catherine's mother had to rinse the place before meals. She kept food covered. Food stayed under a cloth until the family was ready to eat. All right, what happened to people during the Great Depression? Okay, millions of people lost their jobs and their savings. Piles of dust. Then came the storms. Huge clouds of dust rolled in. They blocked out the sun. The dust buried animals. It killed crops. It filled basements. The dust rushed up people's noses. It scratched people's skin. The storms came more often. People saw that it was a mistake to remove all the prairie grass, but they could not agree on what to do. Meanwhile, life got worse. Catherine's family was lucky. They did not have much money, but there was always food on the table. Some people had nothing. Pause and think. What were some of the effects of the storm? Okay, it killed crops, it filled basements, it buried animals, it went up people's noses, it scratched people's skin. The Black Cloud. It was the morning of April 14th, 1935. Many people thought better times had come. The sky wasn't swirling with dust for the first time in weeks. Catherine went to church with her family. Then she went to her grandmother's house. That's when the black cloud appeared. The dust storm was worse than any that had come before. It rose 8,000 feet into the sky. It turned the day dark. Farmers stumbled in their fields. They could not see. Drivers crashed their cars. It's not known if anyone died because of the storm, but hundreds of people were rushed to hospitals. They were sick from breathing in dust. The day came to be known as Black Sunday. All right, pause and think. How was the dust storm worse than others? Back into the text, it tells us that it rose 8,000 feet in the sky. Okay, so it was bigger than any of the ones before. Humans must fix it. It's been more than 80 years since Black Sunday, but Catherine still remembers the storm. She and her grandmother huddled together. The storm lasted for hours. I really did think the world was coming to an end, Catherine said, but she survived. People faced the truth. Humans had broken the prairie. Humans had to fix it. People planted millions of trees. They planted prairie grass too. Farmers learned to be kinder to the land, and the weather changed. By the late 1930s, the drought had ended. There had never been another dust storm as bad as the one on Black Sunday. Many people left the prairie after that storm, but Catherine's family stayed. She later married. She settled down near where she grew up. Black Sunday taught Catherine a lesson. I learned that even when things don't work out quite right, I should be thankful for everything, she says. All right, pause and think. Why did humans need to fix the prairie? Okay, if we go back into our text, it tells us that they had broken it. So when we break something, it's important for us to fix it and come up with a solution. All right, boys and girls, on the next slide, you're going to click the Google form, answer the questions, and then hit submit on this assignment. Thank you so much. Have a great day.